Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and this morning's edition for Monday the 5th of December comes to you from London. And we'll start by looking at currencies. All of today's data coming from the DTN IQ feed. Of course, Updata runs on multiple data services, but we'll start by looking at currencies. These are my long-term charts. This is the weekly 1% point and figure, the daily, so this is my medium term, 0.5% point and figure, and the 60-minute short term and 0.1% point and figure on the 60 minutes. So long term, medium term, short term, we can apply this to absolutely anything as we go through. So we start by looking at the dollar index, falling away a bit this morning, which is quite interesting off the Italian vote. But it is holding this 100, 102 level at the moment. So we are in a sideways move after the big move up since the US election. But we are just in negative territory here. We've got a couple of downside targets. This one now activated, 98.68. So that's about 2% downside. So we may see a pullback in the dollar, but the long-term charts are still very, very bullish. If we take a look at the euro, of course, the big story is the Italian referendum result, and we saw the big move down on that as it became clear overnight. But what's interesting is we have recovered quite a lot of that this morning. So we are seeing the euro rallying after that big fall to below 105 there at one stage, well 105.05, so really just nudging the 105 level. But we are still bearish long term, bearish medium term, and really we do have these downside moves here on the long-term chart. This column here is this low point here, and this big one is this big move down here. So if we go below this level of 106 and hold it for a day, really 105 is the level. We go below that, hold it for a day, then we would activate a very serious downside target of about 15%, and then there's a very big downside target, almost a 40%, where the euro could just completely collapse. Now, at the moment, we look at the shorter term targets first, and we are seeing lots of targets to this sort of 101, 102, 103, 105 area. So that is quite interesting that we are seeing that. So really the key thing is, if we want to watch the euro closer, open the 1 minute chart in Updata. This data again coming from DTN. Press the T key, and we've got these targets. If we go to the next level, we've got 102. We've got 102. 55, that's about 3.5% downside. That is activated. So that was the big move that we saw overnight, and then here's the recovery that we've seen. So we have got this downside target as a result of that big move. The big question now is, can we break out? And really the big thing is there is a range here now, 106.85, 107 let's say. That seems like quite a mountain for the euro to climb. But of course, if we make new lows below this 105 level, then that's downside to 102.5. So really, this is the game now. Watch these 1 minute charts. And of course, you can go even smaller still, and you can watch this whole picture developing in real time. So if we take a look at the dollar against the yen, we see here the strength really continues here. We might be seeing a little bit of resistance on the cloud on the weekly, but we're seeing a reversal through the trend here. This upside target given and met. We do have still an upside target to 116 on the yen dollar. And what's interesting is we have bounced off the cloud. So we are seeing the dollar strength just continuing here against this currency. You can be absolutely sure that Japanese investors are looking at the clouds very closely on this chart. If we take a look at sterling, interestingly, sterling is putting in a bit of a recovery. Here's the weekly chart. That's showing up on the daily, just starting to come through on the cloud, but not on the lagging line yet, but above 127. And interestingly, we have now crossed this long trend line on the 60-minute chart. And so we are just starting to see upside targets. Nothing as big as the downside targets we saw, but we are seeing these upside targets now, and we are just seeing a trend change. So 128.50 is interesting. And again, if you want to keep a close eye on sterling, go to the 1 minute chart, press the T key, and this will give you a heads up on where we're going in the short term. So here we see 129, 128.60. So we are seeing just targets building all the time here. If we go very short term, we see the the targets really kicking in. No real downside targets playing. This one might become a new one. Watch this building in real time. So short term, sterling looking pretty bullish, and that's confirmed against the euro, where we're seeing the sterling less pennies to buy the euro. It's the way to look at it, this chart inverted. So, and we are seeing that trend change where sterling now has the upper hand. Lots of downside targets here, 81, 80. So it'll take less pence to buy the euro, so strengthening sterling there. If we take a look at sterling against the Swiss, strengthening here through the cloud on the daily, so that's quite good news. And if we take a look at against the Aussie dollar, just as an extra, we've got lots of upside targets here as well, so quite interesting. We move to stock markets now. The S&P 500 failed to hold the 2200 level on Friday. We do have long-term upside, lots of support in the long term. Upside target of 26%. 23 and 18% upside targets here on the medium-term chart. We are bullish here as well. We're still holding the bullish position on the 60-minute chart. We are above the cloud just on the lagging line. Price coming through, it's a bit of a warning. 21.78 is the downside target. Not spectacular. 22.22 is the upside target on this chart as well. So 1.5% upside. We really need to convincingly hold that 2200 level to feel confident about the market. If we take a look at Nasdaq not looking as good. Had quite a sell-off here on Friday, and really end of the week we're below the cloud, still struggling to get through this 4,900 level. Really critical there that we just can't break that 449 level, and that's showing up in the weekly. But this is a big move up, sideways consolidation. We should, on the basis of the long-term charts, eventually break. Testing support here on the lagging line on the medium term, just bearish on the short term. If we do go lower, that does activate a downside target of about 6% on the Nasdaq. So it just could be that we see some end-of-year jitters. Taking a look at the futures this morning, the S&P future is up about 0.5%, so that's looking better, and the Nasdaq E-mini up nearly 2/3%. So it does look like a little bit of recovery on the E-mini. So again, keep an eye on the 1-minute charts for those point and figure price targets. If we take a look at the FTSE, FTSE recovering this morning, up nearly 1%, but we just are teetering with bearishness here in the medium term. And we do have this little sort of head and shoulders building on the weekly chart, so a little bit worrying if we do fall below this this level here, about 600. But interestingly, we are pulling back. We are still bearish below the cloud, but we are trying to recover. Same with the FTSE 250, and we'll take a look at some FTSE stocks in a minute. Looking at the Xetra DAX. Strong recovery here this morning. So ironically, on that Italian result, it's actually rising a bit. Again, we've got strong resistance here as we need to break this 10,800 level for the DAX to run. Nikkei overnight is looking still pretty good. Asian markets generally. We did see a bit of a sell-off on the Hang Seng. So we move through to commodities. Crude oil, of course, was the big story. Had a big move last week on that OPEC announcement. It's held that move, so that's the interesting. Here's the move, sideways, moving up again. That's pretty strong for the oil price, so that's looking good. We've got targets of 57.24, that's 4%, and 62, that's 13% on the short-term chart now. We're not quite through yet on the weekly chart, but we are heading to the end of the seasonality for crude, where we'd normally fall in the latter part of the year. As we come to the year end, it's creeping forward a little bit, the seasonality. Strong Q1 is what we normally expect for oil, so it is looking like we are going to continue that strength. Again, keep an eye on the 1-minute chart for trends and targets. Looking at WTI, also strong here, and we've got an upside target to 54.28 there, so that's quite interesting. If we go to US Nat Gas, we see here the move above the chart. The cloud here is pretty strong as well. Above on the daily now, just turning into bullish territory, and not far to go to move through on the weekly. Upside targets here of 4% and 3.6%. So that's sorry, $4.060 and 360. So that is about 15% upside. So nat gas looking better and better all the time. We're seeing most softs actually looking quite good. Just they have been bearish, but just starting to come through on the cloud. A bit of recovery there. Not so much on wheat, but just again, just about to come through. And we are seeing that thrust off the bottom. But no real clear upside and still long-term very bearish. We take a look at gold. Gold has really struggled to cross this cloud on the short term, has had quite a sell-off here. It's showing through on the daily, not through yet on the weekly chart, so we might find support on this cloud. But interestingly, we've got this downside pressure here on gold. It's just struggling to get through the cloud at the moment, down a further 1% this morning. Silver did actually get through the cloud, little head and shoulders building there, just seeing that. So on the short term, we are just pulling back about 1.5% downside. So precious metals really struggling. A quick look at the 10-year government bond. That's sitting at 2.43%. This is the US bonds. And we have got upside targets to 3.5, 2.5. It does look really like US interest rates are going to go higher and higher as priced in. Just looking at a few US bellwethers, we've got Apple still just a bit bearish there below the cloud. Alphabet not really moving yet either. A lot of these tech stocks just struggling to get back above the cloud in the short term. We're not surprised by that because we've seen that in the Nasdaq chart. Again, Facebook really holding on here. If it breaks below this 115 level, that's potentially another lurch down. Microsoft, again, just in that bearish territory. So US tech not looking so great. If we take a look at UK market, this is the FTSE, and if we just look at the bearish ones first, the great thing about this format is that you can do this on any list, any chart you want. You can download these lists from the Updata libraries. And so here we see bearish Hong Kong Gold Resources down 3.8% this morning. So looking pretty bearish on this chart. Most of the we know FTSE's up this morning. So looking at where the performance is, we've got the banks really coming through quite strongly. Barclays, Royal Bank of Scotland, been a lot in the news lately. No real clear upside targets here, so quite a hard chart to read. Again, the commodities, BHP looking a bit better. Rio Tinto, Glencore. We're seeing all of these coming through. This is great thing is just click on any chart you want and get the medium-term picture. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.